Hello, Mags here again. I thought I would show you today how I've created these, not blank tags, but these little tags out of spare pages from my Dina Wakley Ledger Journal. It's called Dina Wakley Media Ledger Journal, and it has a nice lot of printed pages. It's a I believe it's a 1920s ledger that's been reproduced. When I first got it, it had a lot of pages in it, and I do add quite a lot of mediums to the pages that I create, and from past experience I've ended up with journals that are really stacked and the pages are struggling to stop into the journal. I have a Diane Reevely one and it's the middle of it's edging out, and I've still got 32 double page spreads that I can create on, so it's struggling a little. Also, I like to be able to finish a journal fairly quickly. I know I'm probably unusual in that, but then I can move on to a different format, a different size or whatever. I do swap between journals, but I do like to be able to sort of think, oh, that one's nearly done. I can choose a different size to start on next. So I looked through and I noticed that they are sewn signatures. So they have thread. The signatures are sewn together. But as well as that, they are glued. They are bound with glue as well. So that's really good. So what I did, I went through and at each sewn signature, I took out 2 pages. I didn't pull them. Let's see, so maybe that one would there and that one would be there. I didn't pull them this way. I pulled them that way, so it didn't put stress on the sewn signatures. So I pulled against the opposite page rather than up against the sewn thread. And that way I got a nice stack of ledger papers to use, but I still ended up with 23 double page spreads that I can use for creating on, which is absolutely brilliant. This is the first one I've done, and you'll see here there's a tag. This is one similar to this that I created. I think it's a bit similar. Oh, it's got a slightly different top, but I created using the spare pages that I'd pulled out. So we'll close this up, pop it away. So all these tags are, it's packaging. It's quite a thin corrugated cardboard, but it's quite strong. So I basically, they are 14.5, put it that way so you can see, 14.5 centimetres tall, 8 centimetres wide, and then I've just cut these little triangles off to give it a slanted top and punched a hole. I actually have a template that I use. It's an old store card, so that when I'm doing the corners, I can either do it, I match up the side and the top, and I can do it that way, or I can do it that way, which is the way I did it here. Just mark it and cut it off. Turn it the other way, mark it and cut it off, punch a hole midway. So then I get sort of 4 or 5 tags all the same. Just pop that away. Then once I'd got, I think I got 4 out of each sheet of this, basically PVA glue all over the tags, one sheet of paper, put it that way, press it on and put 4 on a page, cut round them and re-punch the holes again. You'll see, let me just get one of the tags that I did the other day. You'll see here they've taken mediums quite well. This has got a nice lot of grunge paste, heat embossing, there's spray infusions, it's also got gesso in there, and they've taken it rather well. They're really sturdy. So this is what we started with, and that's what we've ended up with. So that's how I create the tags. I do also put a hole reinforcer. Let me just get one out. On. This has got a couple of black ones. Just round the hole there. If I'm gessoing them, which I do tend to put a diluted coat of gesso on them just to knock this quite bold buttermilky colour back, and make it so that it takes the mediums nicely and the mediums move a little bit more on there. So I'll show you that process next, but that's the little video on how we created these tags. So basically we've got 4 from each sheet. So we've got 4 similar but different tags. So that's how we've covered our tags. And then the back was just an old sheet out of a visitor's book. Mum had a visitor's book that she didn't want anymore from when Nana used to have a boarding house. And I just stuck the tags onto that so that that was on the reverse and cut round again. So I'll pop that on the back. So that's the process for that. Right, so we're back with our little tags that we've created with the Dina Wakley, oh, water on that one, Dina Wakley journal pages that I've removed from the journal. Don't know why it's wet. And I'm just going to give them a light coat of gesso. This is the watered down gesso. It's Pebeo gesso with quite a lot of water. It might be too thin. Yeah, I'll just put a bit more gesso in it. Just to make it a little bit thicker. Just mix it in one of these little pots, little paper pots, which start out quite, I'll show you one. They start out like this, and then by the time you put wet mediums into them, they go nice and dumpy, and I'm going to cover them with paper. There's just little trinket pots for keeping my little bits and pieces in. Right, so we're just going to do a thin coat of gesso over our tags. It just knocks this quite dark buttermilky colour back, which I find a little bit too harsh for me. But it also gives us a coat. It seals the paper so that then I can add other mediums and they'll move on these rather than just soaking into the paper. So this is just the next step to creating our tags. And if I thought it wasn't quite sort of thick enough, I could always go back and do another coat, but I think this will be fine. As you can see, it's quite yellowy gold. gesso wasn't quite mixed in enough. That's it. Just a little bit more on there. Yeah, I think that's a lot better, and you can see as it dries, it just makes them a little bit paler. That's about right. I think you might like them just as they are, without the gesso on them. Or you could, if you like the yellowy colour, the goldy yellow, you could add a coat of clear gesso, and then that your mediums would still move on the top, but you wouldn't get it wouldn't knock the colour back as well. I'm just going to give this another coat. As I say, you can give it as many coats as you want till you get the effect you want. Yeah, I think each one's going to need a couple of coats. I could have just made not watered my gesso down as much, but you can always add more coats. You can't take them away once you've added them. So just another one on this one, and I think we'll be done. And I think my gesso's nearly finished anyway, so that's good. I won't be wasting any. There we are. Yeah, there we are. I think those are about right for me. Hello, so we're back and we're going to do the next stage of our tags. I've inked the edges of the tags up with just some Archival ink, Ranger Distress Archival ink, little sponge, and just ink the edges up. There we are, easy as that. It just gives a nice vintage look to it. Right, so we're now going to use this stencil, which is a PaperArtsy stencil. It is PS456 and I love it. It's absolutely fab. You can see I've used it a lot. So I'll just show you how I do it on one tag, but I will be doing all four, but in different places. So if I put the stenciling this side on this one, the next one I would do that side, across that corner, maybe across this corner, just in different places on the different tags. So I'm going to use PaperArtsy Grunge paste. It's brilliant, is this, because it's one of the few pastes that you can rehydrate. If it dries out, even if it goes quite solid, you can rehydrate it by just adding water and gradually mixing it in. And one of the things that I've learned is once it gets down to sort of half a tub like this, there's more air in there, so it's more likely to dry out a little. So before I put the lid on and put it away, I spray it with water, quite a generous amount of water on the top, and then it sort of sinks in and it stops it from completely drying out. If I'm not using it for quite a long time, maybe a couple of months, then I will every so often take it off the shelf, just spritz it with water again and give it a stir. But I had one that had gotten really, really quite solid, and I managed to retrieve it because Leander says it's clay based, so it's a lot better than any of the other texture pastes and things because you can save it. So that's PaperArtsy Grunge paste. So I'm going to get a little bit on my spatula. That's maybe a bit too much, we'll see. I did think I would put some paper underneath, just to save getting it all over my work surface. Right, so I'm just going to go down this side. And a little bit. Yeah, I think that'll do. Might as well scrape the excess off. Do I need I need a little bit down that side there. It's just missed that area there. And there, and that little bit there. That's it. Lift it up. And then I'm just going to scrape this little bit off here. I don't particularly want it on that edge. Now hopefully you can see that shining. At the moment it doesn't show up because it's on a pale background, but we'll be doing lots of other layers, so it will show up. Right, let's get that back into there, and I'll show you that I do the opposite side. Just turn that round. So I've gone that side there, so we'll go. I better mind that out of the way, else it'll get damaged. Yeah, we'll go about there. Oops. A bit more. That one there, and I'll go in that one there. Just get rid of the excess, and I might as well do those two up there and go across the end. Sometimes, because I've got ink on this, on an ink pad, sometimes it'll pick up a little bit of the blue or black colour. It doesn't bother me at all. And then we'll pick it up again. And as before, I'll just get that edge cleaned off a little bit underneath there. That's it. So you'll see we've got a nice coating there again. I don't want to waste it. We'll gather that up and put that back in. There we are. So that's two of them done. I'll do the other two, and then once they are completely dry we'll go to the next step. Right, I'm back. These are completely dry now. I've left them quite a long time and they are completely dry. I'll just show you what I'm going to do with one of these, but I will complete the others later. I'll just put a piece of paper underneath and then I don't get ink on my tile, because this is an old tile that I work on. I don't like to get too much ink on it in case it doesn't come off. I've got Ranger Archival ink jet black. I've got my stencil PS456 PaperArtsy stencil, which I used to apply the grunge paste through. Now let's see if we can get it back where we had it. There we are, I think that's it. No, it must be higher because we've got some there. I think that's it. Right, I've got a little tiny stencil brush. My friend Julie gave me these and they're absolutely fab. I don't know where she got them from, but any stencil brush would do. Or you could even use just a stiff paintbrush, just an old one, but a stiff one. And I'm picking up some of the ink from my ink pad. And just applying it to the grunge paste through the stencil. So the stencil is protecting the areas where there isn't grunge paste, and I'm just going over all the paste. If I've got areas where there's paste part way in the stencil opening but it isn't all the way, you can carry on and fill that gap up. That looks quite nice. Now I'm just going to lift it up and see if I've missed any, because I probably will if I haven't got it positioned right. Yes, I have. So what you can do is just pop it on again and add some ink where you've missed it. And a little bit down here. This just gives it a bit more depth. When you apply the infusions, it just gives it a little bit more depth. There we are. Right, so you can see where there's a bit of grunge paste but there isn't there, but I've extended it. There might be little bits where it hasn't quite lined up, and you can go back in and make sure you've got your ink on all of your grunge paste. You can even go in the edges. Now for depth, I want a couple of these that are a lot darker than the rest. As you can see, we've got different shades of sort of black and grey. I want some here that are a lot darker, so I'm going to put my stencil back and pick up a lot of ink and go on 2 or 3 of those quite deeply. And the adjoining ones I'm adding a little bit too. There we are. Can you see it's got a bit more depth on there? So this is the one without the ink on it, and that is the one with the ink. You can actually go around the edges as well and ink the edges of your tag while you've got some ink on your little brush. Because this is permanent, it won't wash off when the infusions get onto it. Right, so I'll continue and I'll do the other tags so that they're all the same, and then we'll come back. Right, we're back. I've got all my tags on 2 pieces of craft mat with some paper underneath, because it get quite messy because we'll be spraying everywhere. So I'm first going to spray them with some just walnut quite heavily. I want quite a lot of just walnut on there. And then I'm going to go with Rusty Car, which is a really nice one. Now my Rusty Car is getting a bit low, it wants topping up. I'm going there we are. I'm going quite heavy because I want it to pool and splatter everywhere. And then I'm going to leave this to dry. I'm not going to dry it with a heat gun. I am just going to leave it to dry naturally, probably overnight, because I'll get a better effect that way. As you can see, it's pooling round the grunge paste, but it's also sort of dragging it from the spaces in between. But we've got quite a nice lot of areas where it's doing interesting things. if there is an area and you think, oh, I don't want so much there, just get something like a baby wipe and just lift it off a little bit. So here I think I just need a little bit less there, because it'll move back into the areas, and you can always go back in and add some more. Yeah, this is starting to dry here and it looks quite interesting. I need a little bit up there, a bit up there, there. And so I'm going to leave it now. Probably just mop a little bit of that up. And let it dry, as I say. And then come back tomorrow and see what we've got. Because I might add another couple of spritzes to each one. That's what I did last time. So I'll show you the results tomorrow. Right, we're back. They've had their first coat of sprays, but I do think we need more intensity. So I've got my rusty car spray again here, and I'm going to give them another spritz. I'm concentrating on the areas sort of where the grunge paste is, because I think that needs more. I think I'm also going to get, let's see, this spray is Royal Blue. Now, nearly all the sprays that I create from Infusions are great, and they have a nice lot of colour. When I did mix the Royal Blue, it's basically come out as grey and black. There's no blue showing up in it. But it is quite good for adding a bit of depth. So I'm just going to give it a few little blasts of the Royal Blue to add some nice depth to it. Yeah, I think it's going to look nice. We'll add a bit more. Just a bit more rusty car. Yeah, I think we're getting there. Maybe a little bit more of the Royal Blue on this one. At the bottom. Right, so we'll let those dry and see what we look like, and then I will splatter in some a bit jaded or green man. I think it was green man that I used last time. We'll splatter a few bits of that and do a little bit more inking. Right, so we're back. It's all more or less dry, so I just want to add a few little splashes of a bit jaded Infusions. So I'm just dipping the spray a bit in and then just splattering. It's not a lot, just enough to give it a little bit of the green. Right, so we'll let that dry and then we'll come back and do the next stage. Hello, so we're back. I've done a couple of steps on 3 of these tags so you can see what they look like when they're finished, but I've still got one to do these on, so I'll show you in a minute. I hope you can see the heat embossing there on the tag, and then I've got a little bit of gold on here as well. That's not heat embossing. So we've got our tag. I'm going to be using this stamp set, Eclectic EM146, which is one of my stamps that I designed. It's got Journey, Travel and Adventure in typewriter script. I've actually cut it into 3 segments so I can use them individually, but you don't have to do that. You could just leave them as a whole and just ink up one section. I just find it easier to do it this way. So that's EM146. I'll just put a little bit of paper underneath so I don't get ink all on my mat, on my tile. I'm using VersaFine Clair, which is a pigment ink, but it's a little bit quicker drying than the pure pigment ink. I like this one. I tend to get very messy with pigment inks because they're so slow drying. I just get them everywhere. I'm not great with pigment ink. So we'll ink up our stamp. Plenty of ink. Yeah. And then I've got the grunge paste this side, so I'm going to go with the stamping here. Hopefully this is straight because I can't quite see. I normally go above. And I'm just going to gradually work my way down. There is a little bit of space in between the grunge paste here, so I'll go in there, and I'm going to go up here as well a little bit. Right, so let me just stamp that off on somewhere else so I don't get it everywhere, and put the lid on my ink pad. Right, they can go over there out of the way. So now, while that's still wet, I'm going to sprinkle over some Wow embossing powder. This is Clear Gloss Superfine. You can use any embossing powder you want. I just like this. And there's another one I like, which is Sweet Dixie embossing powder, Crystal Clear. That's nice as well. Right, so we're just going to tip the excess away. Put that over there for a minute while we get this back into our jar. I know from experience you must always put the embossing powder back in the jar and the lid on before you get the heat gun out. Ask me how I know this. Alright, so we'll just get our heat gun. And I tend to heat it up a little bit before I put it onto the powder on there, onto the tag, just to make sure it's hot enough. There we are. You can probably see we've got nice glossy heat embossing. Just put that over there and unplug it. So that is, yeah, it's not tacky anymore. So the next step is to add a little bit of this Pebeo gilding wax. This is Empire Gold. And I've got one of these sponge daubers that I use sometimes for applying it. Just dab it in and pick a bit up, but you could do it with your fingers. And I'm going to go around the edges just to add a little bit to the edge. That's it, a little bit more. Right, and then very, very gently, so I don't smear it everywhere, I'm just going to go over the grunge paste. Yeah, I want a few little smears. just picking up the edges of the grunge paste and the texture. Get a bit more and I'll dab it off in the lid. Yeah. And it's just little touches, it's not a vast amount. It's just little touches. And I'm not pressing very hard at all. If I press too hard, I'll get this, I'll get streaks, which I don't want. I'm just building it up gradually. There we are. I think that's what I need. Just need a little bit more on there. That's it. So you can probably see, hopefully you can see the shine on it. So that just adds another little effect, another layer. So I've done that on all my tags now, so they're all embossed and they've all got the gilding wax on. So I'll move on to the next stage of choosing embellishments and what I'm going to put on them. If you can remember, on the last set I had some Holtz Idea-ology Guage Dials, but I want something different for these because I don't want to do 8 the same. I've already got 4 with the Guage Dials. I have these little wooden stars which might be quite fun to put on, so I'll have a play, dig a few things out, and then I'll be back. Hello, so we're back. I've got our bits and pieces gathered up that I'm planning on using. I've got some little wooden stars which I've just brushed a little bit of the Inca Gold onto. I've got a word from one of my stamps, mini stamps for PaperArtsy. I've got an image from Kleeblatt Creations. I'll put a link below the video to the Etsy store where I got these. Got a little bit of dyed muslin, little bit of book page, one of the Holtz Idea-ology Guage Dials, and 3 of the little metal stars, Holtz metal stars. I'm going to start by stamping onto this star. Oh, I've got some double-sided tape as well, and some PVA glue and Liquid-X matte gel. So I'm just going to get one of my little stamps. This is EM146. It's the one that I used to stamp on the tag here. Ink. I'm not particularly bothered about it reading, it's just for visual texture, that one. That away. Right, so I'll start with our boy. I've printed him on reasonably heavy copy paper. I want him to stand up a little bit from the background, so I'm going to add some double-sided tape. As much as I trust the glue on the double-sided tape, it does in time sometimes sort of break down and things will come off, so I always use PVA glue as well. So I'm going to put a bit on there and a bit on his head, up there we are. So he'll sit sort of there. Our dial, actually he'll sit a bit higher because I'll have the book page. Our dial I want there. So I'll use some PVA glue for that. You could use the gel medium, but PVA glue is fine. So I think we were about there. I'll make sure it's at the top. That's it, 0 at the top. I'm gonna, oh yes, I need some more tape. Sure that's the right length. Yep. I don't need it as thick as this, so I'm going to cut it in half. Over there, and again some PVA glue to make sure it sticks and stops stuck on just along the bottom there. This just raises our book pages up. Right, I'm going to stick our boy on now. There we are. So you can see he's raised up a little bit and our dial is at the back flat. So that's quite nice. Let's have a look that way around. Ooh, our bit of book page is not quite wide enough part way down. So we'll take a little bit off. Right, so we're going to put some PVA on here. Oh, it's nearly wide enough. Yeah, I just need to cover that little bit, so I do another little bit of book page. There we are. That just covers our tape up. Now, this is one of my stamps. Let me just find it. Oh, where are we? Here we are. EM149 Eclectica PaperArtsy. I love it, and I've stamped it onto copy paper, heat embossed it, and cut out the separate words to use. Now you'll see it's got white edges because I've cut out the separate words. I don't like that, so I'm just going to go around the edges with black. It's little details sometimes that make things. There we are. So we've just got that with the black edges. I'm going to glue that on. I think we'll go, let's see, where shall we have our star? I think we'll have our star there, so I'll go here with our words. There we are. Now our star needs a little bit stronger glue, so I've got a cotton bud and my Liquitex matte gel. I'll try to keep as much of the lid on as I can. So we'll have our bit of muslin there. I'll just tease it out a little bit and give it a bit of a twist. There we are. And then we'll use that on the back of our star. Pop that here. Right, so we've just now got our 3 stars to pop on. I'll put one in the middle of there. Just need another little. That's it, let's get that up there. Right, now where shall we put these? I think we'll put that one there. And that one a little bit higher up. I'm all fingers and thumbs. There we are. And that's done. I think I'll probably put some wire up at the top. But basically that's done. Our little wording just wants to rise up a little bit, but I'll keep pressing it down. Right, so I hope you've enjoyed me seeing me create these. This is the one that I finished today. I finished these last night. There we are. Move those out of there. And the last one, let's move you over there a minute. I think we can just about get them in. There we are. There's our 4 tags. I'll add a picture at the end, but I hope you give it a go.